I hope you will indulge me a little bit in a non-planned video response. Uh, what I have been reading the last few days has led me to want to highlight some issues that I think are reflect out of what I'm asking you to do, and some larger issues that I think are really important to kind of keep in mind a framework. We will actually talk more about some of this later on in the semester, but I think right now, especially in the context of your responses to my video and Dallas Willard's video, I'd like to make these few comments. As I have read and talked with most of you, some in person and others via Canvas and email, I've been reminded of a few things that are crucial. They haven't been ignored, but they haven't really been brought forward. The root of the word crucial, by the way, is from the Latin crux, C-R-U-X, which means cross, which is a way of emphasizing something I think is pretty important. This brief response grows mostly out of your reflections on those videos, and I may have been remiss in not making more of this earlier. Rather than try to respond to each of you specifically and end up saying some of the same things over and over, I want to try a broader response reflecting more broadly on the responses that your responses have occasioned in me. That was a convoluted sentence. So much of the work you have all been doing, or at least appears to me so, is more focused on personal formation, emotionally and spiritually healthy emotions. That's a good thing. And it does reflect on how I built the course. But there is at this point a missing context that, as I said, will be addressed more fully as you work on living together and the readings from practicing theology toward the end of the semester. And that is that these disciplines that we've been talking about, these spiritual practices, are also corporate disciplines, corporate practices, intended not only to shape you, but also a community of believers. So I'd like to take a few minutes to talk about this and provide something more of a context. Several years ago, I was deeply involved in a ministerial formation ministry out of Church of God Ministries. It was called SHAPE. Some of you may know of it. Maybe some of you have been involved in it. SHAPE is an acronym standing for Sustaining Healthy and Pastoral Excellence. We talked in SHAPE a great deal about pastoral health and unhealthiness, and in the process arrived at several statements about what characterizes a good and faithful ministry. Well, the shorthand is that a good and faithful ministry is sustained by good and faithful ministers. That's kind of a no-brainer, right? But then we asked, well, what does that look like? What does a good and faithful ministry look like? A good and faithful minister look like? And we came up with a list, a two-part list. One, a statement of hallmarks, we called them, 5 of them, and then followed by 3 goals that help us think about how do I achieve those hallmarks. The first one is knowledge. The statement is the pastor helps congregations think in new ways about spirituality and community. Healthy pastors seek continuing education opportunities. Here you are in a continuing education opportunity and have access to competent practitioners in ministry and biblical and theological studies. Healthy pastors are willing to stretch and be stretched out of their comfort zones. They care and plan for growth for themselves. They're lifelong learners. Number 2, And here's a crucial one related to all the work we've been doing, and I want to really highlight this one. The second hallmark is spirituality. And here's the statement that for us was kind of mind-blowing when we arrived at this. And it's one that's never left me, and I think a great deal about this. The pastor is more God-centered than church-centered. Healthy pastors create appropriate boundaries between work and respite and between family and congregation. They make time to engage in the spiritual disciplines of devotional time, solitude, personal and family withdrawal, prayer, biblical and theological study, fasting, and the rest, those that we've been talking about and you've been determining to engage in. Healthy pastors desire to grow as whole persons and pay attention to their spiritual vital signs. Not simply for themselves, okay? That's important. For the sake of the community of believers as well. Third one, connectedness and life events. The pastor's life touches people and brings them closer to God. That's ultimate goal, right? Healthy pastors strive to avoid isolation. They are energized for ministry through regular contact with their peers. They and their families are nurtured by biblically based counseling. Healthy pastors are committed to building relationships and are willing to be mutually accountable to others, specifically in peer clusters. Fourth, vision and fulfillment. The pastor helps others discern God's plan for their lives. Healthy pastors take charge of and assume responsibility for designing and taking part in study, relationships, and activities that sustain and nourish vision. They seek to live out of God's purpose and are willing to plan for personal growth and development by maintaining their own journey. They can inspire and assist others in vision and fulfillment. And fifth, leadership. The pastor is empowered to make an orchestrated impact on the community. Healthy pastors recognize their strengths and weaknesses as they grow in self-awareness and insight. They then take charge of and assume responsibility for designing and taking part in steady relationships and activities that sustain and nourish their leadership. So there are those 5 goals: knowledge, spirituality, connectedness in life events, vision and fulfillment, and leadership. They then raise the question, well, how do we do that? How do we achieve that? Well, goal-setting behavior. It's important that we set goals and live up to those goals and achieve them. And those goals should be directly connected to 3 specific areas of our lives in the context of those 5 hallmarks. So, first of all, goals for personal growth. A healthy pastor embraces the 5 hallmarks in his or her personal growth. Personal growth. Healthy pastors grow as parents. They grow as spouses. They grow as persons, quite aside from any professional role. Healthy pastors develop their own personal devotional lives. First set of goals. Second set of goals, goals for professional growth. A healthy pastor grows as a pastor, seeking to become a better leader, better manager, better spiritual guide. Healthy pastors grow as preachers and teachers. They grow as counselors. They grow as mentors and coaches of disciples. They grow because of accountability relationships. That's 2. 3, goal for partnership goals. A healthy pastor is connected with other pastors, works with ecumenical groups, and supports the state, national, and global ministries of the church of which he or she is a part. The overarching goal of the hallmarks and these goals is, again, simple. the goal, we said, is that Christ will be formed in all, which is the ultimate formation, right? So as we continue the journey of spiritual formation, it's essential to not lose sight of ministerial formation. As many of you point out, there is a direct, even causal relationship between character, and we mean by that Christian character, and behavior, how we live in the world, so that there's a congruence, a practicing what we preach that is real and true and life-giving and nurturing. So as you move forward, keep this kind of dual reality in mind. It's mutuality. It's not distinct. It's not separate. There's a connection. If they're not connected, there's something else seriously wrong. So I just wanted to respond to this because it really means we live what we believe. And in the living what we believe, we achieve significance. Not significance in terms of our own personal significance, but significance in terms of the kingdom of God. Well, that's the end of this brief kind of special little reminder to all of us as we proceed forward. Looking forward, as always, to your comments, questions, and concerns.